Hello and welcome to the Tech Marketing Podcast brought to you by Together. Today I'll be joined by Lisa Gilbert, VP of Global Marketing at Kyndryl, and Ari Sheinkin, VP of Global Demand at IBM. And we're going to be discussing the controversial subject of whether we should be incentivizing field marketeers, something which of course I think we'll all be very intrigued to listen to. So Ari and Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
This has been a little while in the making. I'm super excited to be talking about this because we always talk about sales and how they tend to get a big cut of the pie, and now we're going to get to talk about marketing. So, thank you both for joining us. This is a conversation you guys have. It's been in the works even longer with both of you. Like, where did this inspiration come from?
I've been wanting to do this for a very, very long time, a good portion of our career, right? I've spent a lot of my career in the field. So I would say more of my career has been in a market in the field than in the headquarters, and been one of those field marketers who have partnered with account teams and done all the blocking and tackling to really help accounts grow, and have really come to the insight that we have some very unique skills that complement that of sales, and together. Maybe we can use the phrase, we're better together, right? And I have run down the path of the attribution model, which I'm not a big fan of. I find it a little toxic. So just my first polarizing comment, maybe, as we go. It just didn't, when you're in the field, it just doesn't help you build relationships with the sales community and with your customers. So when I came to Kyndryl, I had this opportunity to give it another go. And first thing I did was call my friend Ari and say, like, hey, are you doing anything like this? Because I want to know if you're making any traction. What can I learn from you? Because I kind of heard through the grapevine, and even when I was at IBM, because Kyndryl obviously is a spinoff of IBM. When I was at IBM, I knew Ari was working on this for a while. So then we started to trade notes, and voila, here we are.
Here we are. I remember the call well, and it's been a long-term ambition of mine because I don't come from marketing. I've been in marketing for the last decade, but I come from analytics and consulting. And the strangest thing about coming into marketing was to see a group of incredibly talented, powerful people say, how do we get a seat at a table? And the question didn't make any sense to me when I got into marketing. Like, how could the smartest people who know the audience and the markets and the products and services better than anyone else, why are we asking for a seat at the table? What a strange question. But in a culture like Kyndryl, certainly at IBM, it's a sales-led culture. And I'm with Lisa, as much as I actually love attribution models and I love analytics, but I agree they don't ultimately solve the problem because you will never convince a salesperson or a finance person about abstract attribution. Marketers have to meet sales culture where they live, which is marketers have to convince the world, starting with our leadership, we sell. PLG is a marketing-led sales motion. Account-based is a marketing-led sales motion. And if we're willing to step up to that, including, and you can pay us on that basis, because we'll take the risk, just like a seller would, that changes the dynamic. And we're just beginning that journey, but it makes a difference.
You've used a couple of terms there, actually, Ari. PLG. Obviously, we all know ABM. That are those the is it the fact that these terms have become more popular that we're talking about this now, or is this something that we should have done years ago?
Probably both, but Lisa called me at a moment in which our CEO in IBM, Arvind Krishna, had made the same point, and he had said, for the first time, it is clear to me that I can treat marketing as a value-creating function, equivalent to sales, equivalent to consulting, at least in specific areas. And he called out product-led growth because I don't need attribution. Because if you can bring people to the website to discover and to buy, that's attributed directly to you without any modeling. And if you can grow the top accounts in IBM, that is your value without any modeling. So it was actually, in our case, our CEO who brought forward the agenda. And that was an amazing moment in my 10 years working on this.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. So you take a very scientific approach to this. In fact, I often think, when you look at someone with a user experience or a UI hat on, they either turn up with a Mac or a PC, and they're either a designer or they're a data analyst about how they might approach user experience. Ari, it's very clear here you're wearing the product hat, and Lisa, you take a much more services-based view. Has this changed? Lisa, starting on your side, has this changed how you might implement this type of program based on the services and your approach to it?
Absolutely. I think, and Ari can talk to it, when you're more of a product company, and I know IBM is a product and a services company, obviously, when you're more of a product company, and especially if you're in, whether this is an IBM case or not, you're a SaaS company, you can do the marketing in the tool, in the product, right, itself, and you can see true attribution completely end to end, and it's very binary. I guess you can say the words. It can be very binary. In services, it's a little less binary, especially in ours. So ours is more what I hold my field marketers accountable for is to build relationships. So help the sales organization build relationships to help shift our reputation from what we've been known for as an infrastructure services provider to more of an IT consultancy. And then if you do the two, the signings will come, right? So ours is much more stay very connected with your customer partner, with your consult partner, make sure he or she understands the value that you add, and together you agree on if or not you opened up a relationship that it ultimately closed new business.
IBM is both products and services. A small set of products that are more SaaS-like, you can go online and discover and buy. But even most of our products will have 4, 6, 9-month sales cycles in some cases. So you don't get these very clean, simple attribution models. But PLG or ABM are good entry points for the conversation with the business. So it's a place to sit down with the CFO and say, where can you most clearly see the value of what marketing does? And they may say, in that direct e-commerce sale, I can see that that's entirely good. Let's start there. But we've also then been able to extend that. Well, what is it you value about what marketing does relative to services, relative to account growth, relative even recently talking about things like to relevancy at the brand level? Because if we can agree to, let's say in our case, we have a survey about brand health, and if being in the top 3 for AI is an outcome that you value, well, then the idea of marketing taking ownership of that and being paid on that basis is of itself a valuable conversation to have. And it grew out of an opening that came out of the more tangible PLG.
Mm-hmm. 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 I think this is where it gets super interesting for me. And Lisa used this term relationship, which is something that I was recently actually working through a project with another tech brand, and we were talking about moving from being task-based to being relationship-based. And so we had a deep conversation debate over what that really means. Like, how do you measure your sales teams on a relationship? Like, how do you get to that depth? Like, is it an agreement between, sales teams? I said, I'm so used to thinking about how we incentivize people. I said sales teams. How do you incentivize the marketing team to build that relationship? Like, what's the model that you've worked on between marketing and sales?
So we did just get it over the line. So that took a good 9 months to do, to be quite honest. We used a program that already exists at Kyndryl. It's a program that we actually use with our delivery centers. So while our delivery centers, that's a good portion of who we are at Kyndryl, are the people who deliver all the services to our customers that we have. They interact with our customers every single day, not necessarily on a proper sales incentive plan. So this gave them the opportunity to add more value. These are the super smart people who are the eyes and ears, and they're on the front line every day to make sure our customers' businesses stay I wouldn't say afloat, but keep working, right, and continuously have their uptime. And they opened up this model, a program. It's the discovery of new services opportunities to them a few years ago, and they've been taking advantage of the model. And when I started talking to some of my sales partners at Kyndryl and the incentive team, and I started proposing, hey, we in marketing also have a skill set similar to this, where we see we have the ability, like Ari said, to understand the customer very, very well, understand each of the personas. We have access to all the LTV data. We have access to the sales navigator data. We kind of know the movements of the customers. We can help. We can see when customers come to our website and download things, right? So we can help kind of unearth some of the things that the sales teams don't necessarily see. And that started to get them interested. We are a challenger brand, right? So we're not at all in, all ideas are good ideas at this point in time. And so they were open to it, and we figured out a way to apply that program to marketing, which we kicked off around 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, so it's still, for me, a sale is quite clear. Like, a customer signs on the dotted line, you're able to demonstrate where the impact that someone's had to potentially close that. Like, how did you go? Did that model give you the monetary framework behind those elements as well for the marketing team? Or, Ari, to your point, you mentioned being top 3 for AI as a potential metric. How do you put a monetary value on some of these more nebulous terms?
It's interesting in our case, and my case particularly, because I now get compensated on the basis of 3 outcomes. And we've said we will be in the top set for AI relevance, and we have a set of measures around that. We said we will grow our top most important accounts by 14%, and that's directly measurable in our financial systems. And we said we were going to acquire 25,000 new customers, and that's directly measurable in our procurement and related systems. So even where you have open questions about the exact value of relevance, which we can debate, and we do have models for, and we can quantify it, but just tying out with the business, that the sales leaders and the finance leaders and our CEO find that to be a valuable outcome and in of itself being measurable, and I will tie my compensation to those outcomes. That was the first step. And then we can have discussions about what is the financial impact of being 3rd instead of 4th or 2nd instead of 5th. But it almost becomes secondary to the business. Got to help decide what was most important. Once you decided, is it directly measurable without models? And am I willing to get compensated on those outcomes? And that changes the culture of how people think about marketing.
So, like, did you have to go back to the board to decide to build out some of these frameworks and get their buy-in? Like, how difficult was that to get buy-in across sales and financial leadership?
I think it just I had to show the value. It wasn't something where, it's not like people are going to retire on these incentives, right? So these are incentives that are a percentage of the sale up to a cap. And I think for me, it's to show and celebrate the wins together, and to show that we've had the sales or consultancy buy-in that, yes, this field marketer contributed to growth. That's that's the premise I'm trying to prove here, right? This is baby steps from my perspective. So if I can start to change culture very, very slowly on, hey, this is the value that marketing can bring, and they can bring, we use some great messaging. Yes, we do phenomenal advertising, but we can help you soften the ground to help you build relationships that you've never had before. That's a win to me, right? And us celebrating that together, sales and marketing, is what I'm trying to achieve at this stage in the game.
I'd like to say, and I'm going to extrapolate. Let's think about this kind of longer term down the line. Instead of me doing my theory of where I think this is going, because I think you're only on stage 1, and I think we've got 100 more steps that we could be going, because this is definitely the trajectory that we're seeing with the importance of marketing. But what is your, I guess, when you started this program together, like what is the end goal that you wanted to achieve here? Like when will you think, yeah, this is what marketing should look like?
I don't know what kind of behavior this is going to create. I don't know what kind of good behavior this is going to create. I don't know what kind of bad behavior this is going to create, right? We are absolutely learning our way through this. This could be a program that lasts a year. But my boss, Maria, has said, like, this is the budget. I want you to blow the budget, right? That's my goal. And I hope we do, right? And I think I have a lot of hungry field marketers on the ground who is in it to win it type thing. But I will look at it at 3 months time, 6 months time, reassess. And, my goal would be to double our budget next year, and really kind of show that when sales and marketing works together, we are better together than apart.
I think these businesses need marketing to be more confident and more assertive and more in a leadership role. And I think culturally, marketing hasn't always been as confident and as bold and assertive as we need to be, and the business needs us to be. And there's a gap there because we'll say we want a seat at the table, but are we willing to go drag the couch into the office and say, I'm plumping myself down here at the head of the table? And this feels like, with experimentation and successes and failures along the way, for IBM, for Kyndryl, for these companies to achieve their goal, marketing has to be a stronger force. And one way of building that confidence is to take more ownership out of outcomes and put more risk in to our own compensation around that. It, almost symbolically as much as practically, it's announcing a different position for the function relative to the business.
Yeah. And to be fair, as we start this, we're not putting an incentive model for our marketers, any risk-based model, right? They're going to get their base, and then this is more recognition budget above and beyond it. So maybe you could say we're doing this with a safety net, but we're doing it, so we're excited about it. But then we'll see kind of where it goes, right?
I'd love the language you use there, Harry. This, like, marketing needs to be more competent. So the way I've been thinking about this, and obviously I'm going to put my agency hat on for a moment, but I'm also very similar to you. I didn't direct a film when I was younger. I've always been in the data and analytics side, and we can come on to the film in a moment because we haven't talked about that yet. But I see, we can see the B2B buyer journey has been changing. Every year on year, it's been shifting more and more towards being marketing influenced. So people want to do their own research now. They now rely on peers to generate their shortlist. They look at things like user-generated reviews. They want to read up on your product and see demos of it even before they speak to sales. And so for me, it's just madness that we haven't been recognizing marketing as part of that journey. And that actually where we've been seeing, using the 80-20 rule, we've been seeing 80% being sales before. I see a future where it's 80% marketing, and the sales just close the door. In fact, and this is stealing another one of our previous podcast guests, a lady called Teresa Parks, who heads up the B2B Institute at Google. She recently told me if you still need sales to close your product, you haven't got a complexity problem. You've probably got a product problem, which is a super interesting way to look at it, and probably going a little bit too far, but that's the trajectory that I think we're on. And that's why we need to start using the language you said, making marketing more confident.
I do. I think in a more digital world and a more data connected world, the business needs marketing. It's not just about brand and storytelling. Those things matter. It's about connecting with audiences and in B2B and buying groups, and the complexity of those relationships and the orchestration of those tactics when you get into the field across media and marketing automation and events is so enormous that only marketing can do that. And that means marketing is the engine of growth. I can say in a company like IBM, to get everything we want, marketing has to be more assertive. We have to be more confident. And as much as we say we want these outcomes, I'll tell you, in our case, for instance, we did put in front of the marketers a risk incentive plan, because sales said, yeah, I like that idea. And our CEO said, that's an interesting idea. And it was the marketers who, in the moment where we could leap, said, I don't know, do I want this? So it's going to be a test for us specifically at IBM, but I think for the industry, we've talked and we've talked and we've talked, and now here it is in front of us. Do we want to grab it?
Yeah, I think Mark, you said something when we talked earlier, which I really liked, where back to, do we have the confidence to take a seat at the table? And I do believe it's confidence that has to come from within, but also a hand has to be held out on the sales side to kind of bring us in as well. But I like how you say, until we take ownership of outcomes, do we really earn that seat at the table, right? And it is about truly taking ownership of outcomes. And you could start with baby steps, and then you can go to a fully leveraged plan, right? Eventually. But right now, we're starting with these baby steps to really bring the sales and marketing team together and celebrating those outcomes when they come, not should they come.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. So I always say that things worth doing are never easy. But that's kind of what I tell my team whenever there's a challenge that we have to take on. When implementing a program like this, like what frictions did you come across when you put this forward?
I describe our CEO and our senior leaders as open, but I'll tell you a heartbreaking moment not so long ago also, where our CEO was describing 2024 agenda and start to categorize functions in terms of value creators versus support. So sales, you're a value creator. Legal, your support. Consulting, you're a value creator. Finance, your support. Marketing, where are you? And it was this moment of truth. As he was describing, he said, support. That's heartbreaking for me. That's not how I see myself. That's not how I see the people who I work with. It's not what I want to be. And in saying that, he also expressed that he's open to something different. So yes, the first friction is that openness there? And in our case it is, but I think you have to open that. But I think the biggest friction almost becomes internal, which is, are we willing to take ownership of that outcome? Pick anyone. Again, as much as I believe in data and science and modeling, pick an outcome that is just you delivered the financials or you did not kind of outcome. Raise your hand and say, we will lead this. It's got to be big and bold and something that's not easily achievable. And then agree to take the risk in it. We're at the point in our company where the openness is there, and we've even worked through the design principles, but we have not been able to put it in place at scale. I myself agreed to be a guinea pig on a personal level, and so my incentive is now much more tied to those kind of outcomes. But we haven't been able to rally the function yet. So for me personally, may not be a universal truth, but the biggest frictions are in our willingness as a marketing function to say, we'll take the risk, we'll take the ownership.
I think it was a culture change that when Kyndryl kind of built the Kyndryl way, and I think kind of where we are, and I'll go back to, we're a challenger brand, and there's no bad ideas out there. We're trying to figure out our best way through for profitable growth. We just have people who are really. I was expecting more of a battle. Granted, I did kind of I found out what the friction point was. Which was, hey, I don't want to take money out of the mouths of our sellers at this stage in the game. So I took that friction point away, or I worked with a team to do that. So once that friction point got taken away, I have to say there was a lot of openness to trying new things, right? And I think that's something that feels great to be part of a culture like that. And like I said, maybe I'm doing this with a net, but you know what? We're doing it. And honestly, the reason I kind of wanted to put this podcast together with you and Ari is I really wanted to start the conversation. I don't think there's a right way of doing it. I don't think there's a wrong way of doing it. I just think there's a way of doing it. And the fact that you guys, we just need to start doing it. I'd love to hear from others around, how do we get confident marketers? What is it going to take for us to really pull that couch up? Sorry about that. Pull that seat up the table and really kind of come in with confidence, knowing that, for me, it's all the insights that we bring, right? My team has access to so many insights that can help fish more strategically and more focused versus kind of casting a wide net, for example. So very curious what the people are going to say.
The area that I pushed on, and if I were more successful, I would write a book about it, but we'll see what happens, right? But at least we're pushing on the idea of how bold is marketing willing to be? Because of the example I gave you before, there's a difference between saying we'll help the top accounts grow 3%. That's supporting sales and what they've already gotten from the financial requirements for the year. That's different than saying marketing will get it to 14%. You had said 3, I'll get it to 14. And whether those exact numbers make sense, the notion that incremental, non-attribution, directly measurable value. Because in IBM, I can tell you these top accounts are going to generate $40 billion of revenue. And at 2 or 3%, it's another $1 billion, but I can actually make it $3 billion. Right? That's the level of confidence that not only do I think marketers have to bring to the business, but I actually think can bring to the business for all the reasons Lisa just said. The insight that we have around how audiences buy and what messages resonate and how you progress opportunities. I don't know anywhere else in our company where that exists except marketing. So I go in personally with a lot of confidence. And then that confidence, I think we have to put ourselves out there a little bit more. If we were selling from outside the company, we wouldn't come in and say, yeah, I can support you in exactly the modest goals you've set for yourself. We'd say, we can change your expectations of what's possible.
How would you define a confident marketeer?
Having we'll use the word chutzpah, to go in and give it a shot, right? I think it's like, I'm currently working with a sales leader, and I worked with a sales leader when I lived in Japan. And I told him my job was to have as many up at bats as possible, even though you would shut me down. Because I think he was shutting me down a few times, and he was starting to feel a little bad. And I'm like, I want my batting average. Like, I'm about getting my batting average up. So I'm going to keep coming in to get that batting average up. And you kind of have to have that point of that kind of fire to want to do that, because one day you're going to knock on that door and it's going to fall down, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We haven't really dived into AI here, but I'm going to take it a bit broader and say innovation. Like, I think a model like this, and gives marketeers a little more freedom, especially growth marketers. Like, we used to term growth hacker. Now we talk about performance marketing. Like, these terms get bounded around a lot, but for me, it comes down to how you break down your budget and your plans and structure your campaigns, even at the tactical level, to be more innovative. And how do you factor that into a journey or to whatever you're delivering? Like, how you've been running these programs now for 2 months, if I'm getting my dates correctly. Like, have you started to see a change in not only confidence, but in some of the approaches that marketers the field teams have started taking?
So this is to me, yeah, we've been doing this for like not even 4 weeks, right? So it's been announced, and there's a lot of interest, and there's a lot of trying to clarify what it means and what do we have to do, and so we're kind of in that storming phase. And I've put kind of a challenge to each of my markets as to who's going to be the first one out of the gate, and we're going to celebrate in a really big way. So I've created a kind of a teams community where they can share best practices, they can share their wins, they can share their failures, what worked, what didn't. There's only 51 of them, right, on my side. So I have a very finite set, and we'll kind of see how we go, right? Maybe this time next year when we do this podcast, or even in 6 months, I could have a little more learnings to share with you. But right now we've kind of framed it, we've announced it, and now, game on.
But I do think this formula that Lisa started on, the marketer being at the center of that, we have this inherent advantage that we can tell stories about that. We can be dramatic when we get on stage and say, how would you like 25% of your cost taken out? We can do that in a way that sales or finance, they can't make that a spectacle, but we can. Do we have the underlying skill set to actually know how to use the technology and automation to make that happen? And do we have the confidence to get up there and say, by the way, I'd love to be compensated on that? Because I actually think I'm worth a lot more money than you may have thought. You know how you're paying your sellers on top of their salary? Pay me on top of my salary if I can bring you these kind of results. So I do think empowerment and confidence and the intersection of that with real soft capabilities and hard skills is a formula that I do see accelerating for the function.
One thing that Ari made me think about is, John, as you were talking about, where does the CRO come from, right? Or where is the CMO of the future? I mean, you talk about that, but, what is the modern day, if we want field marketers with this confidence and the technical capability to understand how to extract insights and then apply them in the right way, like, where does the modern marketer come from, right? Is it, I don't think it's no longer maybe the classic advertising scheme anymore. It's more, maybe it is more data and analytics. Maybe it's more sales. I don't know. It'd be an interesting conversation to talk about. I talk to lots of parents who ask me, oh, should my child, take this or that in uni, right? And, my answer is you need a child who has curiosity and that at its base, right? And from there they can fly. But it would be interesting to think of what would be the ideal kind of growth path or career path to land one of these amazingly competent field marketers who is on a leverage plan and blows their numbers, that kind of.
I could see it coming from anywhere, Lisa, because I see that in you, and you and I don't come from the same path, and I hope I see it in myself. Quick confession, for years, I didn't like calling myself a marketer. So within the function, I'd been here for 7 years, and people say, oh, you're in marketing. I said, well, I'm in marketing, but I'm not really a marketer. I kind of do this other stuff, and I want to be, even on my resume or my LinkedIn profile, would say more like a growth leader, something along those lines. And then at some point, I realized I want to take that back. I want to reframe what marketers is. Instead of running from it, I want to embrace it. I want to be proud of, this is absolutely what a marketer is. Lisa is an ideal for me of what a marketer is. It is someone who first and foremost has that confidence, who has empowered themselves, who opens up those possibilities in the business. And they can come from a data background, or they can come from an advertising background or an agency background. But I do think the future belongs to people who can proudly say, I'm the kind of marketer who owns outcomes and owns the risk and gets compensated on that basis. That's why this is so personally important to me.
Yeah, and I think that it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen innately. I used to use a phrase, which I don't use anymore, which is fake you till you make it type thing. But the phrase that I'm more comfortable now is kind of a be it till you become it. And sometimes you just have to put yourself into it and be it, and see how it goes. And then the more you be it, you will ultimately become it, from that standpoint.
If you're a CMO listening to this and thinking, I want to get started, like, what would be your tips?
The most productive thing on our side is to really challenge ourselves and to challenge the business leaders in what is it that you value about marketing, and what is the business impact that marketing can have. And it can be different for different businesses. It can be relevance, it can be account growth, it can be product-led growth. But that conversation, and then the sense of, if we can articulate that outcome that has real value and measurable value and not modeled value, then we as a function will own that with a boldness and a confidence and a financial incentive to get to incremental growth that you haven't seen from us before. And it does start, I do think, with the willingness to have the conversation in our case. which is, what do you really want marketing to be? Because we're more powerful than you realize. But I think we have to frame that for the business.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick up on what Ari said. You definitely have to have the chops or the expertise and the confidence to go in. But I think you have to choose your sales partner wisely or choose your company wisely, right? So if I was a CMO looking to launch something like this, I would look for a company, a sales colleague, a sales partner who has an openness and curiosity to find growth wherever they can find it, right? And not have a fixed mindset. And so the company, it's important about the company you keep with big C and little c.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And it's exactly what one of our previous podcast guests did when they made a similar change in their organization. So Jeff, who works at Smart Tech, who I'm sure I'll get to interview again at this year's A&As, famously brought sales and marketing together under one roof and renamed everyone's job roles, which is going probably 5 steps down the line from what we're talking about here. But I think you've got to find that partner that's willing to go on that journey with you and willing to help you with the alignment before you can, again, I guess, build out the modules and build out the attribution modeling to know it's going to be successful. So Ari and Lisa, it's been fantastic to have you both on the Tech Marketing Podcast today. I'm really hoping this is just the first of a series. So let's keep coming back and seeing how you get on this journey, because this is something that, as a marketeer, and like you, Ari, I refused to wear that hat for a little while. I'm super excited and want to know that we're going to be that we're changing the models and we're going to be bolder and more confident in the future. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Ari.
Thanks, Lisa.